Hi, today I'm going to be giving a presentation on the Holocaust. Before I go into the presentation, I want to preface that this is a quite personal topic for me. On one side of my family, we are Jewish, and unfortunately, during the Holocaust, everyone on that side of my family perished except for the ones that were in America. So this is a bit of a personal topic for me, and I believe it's one of the most important things for people of our generation to learn, so a travesty like it does not occur again in the future. In going into this presentation, I'm going to focus on the 10 stages of genocide. When looking at the Holocaust, it's really a good way of analyzing it because you can see how it actually happened. The 10 stages of genocide are a structure that has been formed over time to understand how genocides happen. And the 10 stages are classification, symbolization, discrimination, organization, polarization, preparation, persecution, extermination, and denial. To start, we're going to go into classification in the Holocaust. So classification occurs when there's an us versus them. In the Holocaust, this was basically the Germans versus non-Germans. This formed due to pseudoscientific racism. If you don't know what pseudoscientific racism, it is basically racism based around Darwinism. So you might not know who Darwin is. Darwin was basically the one who discovered the theory of evolution, but he also was the one that discovered survival of the fittest. And this was applied to human races and ethnicity that created social Darwinism. So during the 20th and 19th century Europe, many ethnicities use this as a way of justifying their racism towards other people by saying, we are better than you, basically. And they based it around the theories of Darwin. So next, we're going to go into symbolization in the Holocaust. So symbolization occurs when there are specific things that can represent the different groups. So at first, this is naming Germans versus Jew. Before it was us versus them. There is a recognizing that there's a difference. But now you're specifically saying, we are the Germans, those are the Jews. And there were also other groups in the Holocaust, but we're going to focus on Jews today, such as those that were gay or lesbian in Germany, and also Jehovah's Witnesses. But today we're going to focus on the Jews. The other thing was group associated uniforms. So the Nazis started wearing armbands to represent that they were part of the Nazi party. And then finally, Jews were forced to wear yellow stars. So this is another big part of symbolization, is enforced colors and religious symbols. So later on, this becomes more extreme, such as them forcing them to put numbers on their arms and making them change their names. But it really started off with the yellow star representing that they are a Jew. The next stage we'll discuss is discrimination in the Holocaust. So discrimination occurs when a dominant group denies civil rights to the targeted group. So this began with Nazi boycotting Jewish businesses. These were organized riots, basically destroying windows of Jewish businesses, burning synagogues, and just refusing to buy their business goods. And then there was the law for the restoration of professional civil service, which banned Jews and other people from civil service, such as being teachers, professors, judges, and other civil positions, further discriminating them. And then finally, this is where the Nuremberg laws were passed, which were one of the most important laws of the Holocaust, basically taking away the civil rights of the Jews, along with many other things. As you can see on the right, that's a picture of a Nazi standing outside of a Jewish business. So now we're going to go into dehumanization in the Holocaust. So dehumanization is one of the most important stages to really understand, because for the most part, people would not be okay with genocide, as we are human, and humans tend to have some level of empathy. But leading into the Holocaust, there was mass delusion. And this mass delusion basically made it so the Germans did not view the Jews as humans. They viewed them as what they called vermin. And this is extremely important in understanding how genocide can happen, because if they are no longer human, then they can justify killing them as, we're just exterminating rats. which is what is really illustrated in this picture on the right. The Jew has the face of a stereotypical Jewish man. It's anti-Semitic in character, but then it's placed on a rat's body, showing how the Germans literally viewed the Jewish as equal to vermin, rats, or things that need to be exterminated. So now we're going to talk about organization in the Holocaust. So organization is basically when planning starts, or this is where the elites of the Nazi Party decided that the answer to the Jewish question was the final solution, or the mass extermination and the complete elimination from Jews from Europe. At first, Hitler just wanted to make them leave Europe by forcing them out, but he eventually decided that the most efficient way would just be to exterminate all of them. And this is also where the planning for the construction of concentration camps begins. Next is polarization in the Holocaust. This is where propaganda was used to actually drive the Jews and the Germans apart. So a genocide's not going to happen unless the dominant group and the group being persecuted against are extremely separated from each other. And this is where propaganda is extremely deadly, because they used it to drive the two groups apart, such as for the Der Stürmer newspaper used by the Nazis to spread hate messages about the Jewish people and blaming them for the problems that the German Republic was facing since World War I, and such as saying that they were the reason why the economy was struggling and why Germany is having to pay so many reparations. And then this is also where the Jews were banned from the economy on November 12th, 1938, where they were banned from owning businesses and selling goods, further polarizing them from the main public. Next, we're going to go into preparation in the Holocaust. So preparation, a little different from organization, is where they actually are planning how to carry it out. So this is where they begin planning how to carry out the final solution. Before it was deciding on the final solution, this is planning how they're actually going to carry it out. This is where they begin constructing Auschwitz on March 1st, 1941. This is where they plan how to carry out the genocide, such as this is where they plan how they're going to move the Jews into ghettos and then transport them to extermination camps later on. And then this is also where they begin to rearm, going against the peace deals of World War I. So originally, Germany was forced to demilitarize, but following the rise of Hitler, they started to ramp up the production of military equipment and going against many of the agreements at the end of World War I, as in preparation for war. Next, we're going to go into persecution in the Holocaust. So this is basically where the victims identified as Jewish or gay, based on religion, ethnicity, or their sexuality, were placed on death lists. And then they were moved into Jewish ghettos. That is what the image on the right is showing, all of the Jewish ghettos in Poland and the areas that the Germans controlled. And then also during this stage, this is where property was taken from the Jews. So during the Holocaust, essentially what happened was they took all of the property away from the Jews and moved them into poor ghettos for the time being. And then after a while, this is where we get into the next stage, which is extermination. In the extermination phase, this is where they actually started carrying out the mass killings. So on the right, you can see that many of the Jews in the extermination camps were starved. And this ended up killing 6 million Jews during the Holocaust, which was over 2/3 of all Jews in Europe. And it's also important to understand that the way they killed them was so extreme. So in the concentration camps, they essentially did it through a couple methods. A, through starvation. B, through overworking. C, through gunfire. But what they introduced during the Holocaust was gas chambers. Essentially, chambers of poisonous gas where they would force the Jews to go into and die due to the gas entering their body. They also had chambers where they would burn them to death. It was the concentration camps were very extreme, and it was not uncommon to see piles of dead bodies within these concentration camps. And then The Nazis also tried to cover it up by calling them labor camps and really trying to hide the genocide that they were doing. They constructed over 44,000 incineration camps where they were very extreme, and some of the biggest concentration camps were Auschwitz, Belzec, Chelmno, Treblinka, Majdanek, and Sobibor. So this is a map of the extermination camps in Europe. As you can see, they were quite spread out and were trying to carry out the Nazi mission of completely exterminating the Jews from Europe. Luckily, and it's hard, the Nazis were, for the most part, able to carry it out. Yes, the Jews survived for the most part, but there's no excusing the fact that over 2/3 of all Jews in Europe were killed during the Holocaust. So this is where we go into the final stage, denial of the Holocaust. So denial of the Holocaust is basically denying or minimizing genocidal impact. Germany has actually done a very good job in dealing with the Holocaust. Contrary to many of the other genocides that have occurred in history, they've accepted full blame for the Holocaust, they continue to apologize, and they've set up an International Holocaust Memorial Day. However, it's important to note that in recent times it has begun to get worse. Many people in the modern era have a hard time even picturing how the Holocaust could have happened and are beginning to deny that it existed. This is extremely dangerous because if people do not know about history, it is bound to repeat itself, which is where we go into the final and most important thing. How do we prevent the Holocaust or a similar event from occurring again in the future? First, genocide education needs to be required in every secondary school in the world. If we educate the masses on history, it is far more likely that something like this will not happen again in the future. Again, and then for any country or area that does try to carry out a genocide, it's critical that they are held accountable for their actions. If we do not hold leaders or their countries accountable for their actions, they will feel that they can do whatever they want to any group of people, and this could lead to another Holocaust or similar event to happen. Finally, we need to promote civil society and human rights groups in our culture. If we do this, we can prevent hate from forming and prevent people from dehumanizing other groups of people and hopefully prevent something like the Holocaust from happening again in the future. And as I mentioned before, there are things like the International Holocaust Remembrance Day, which help people every year remember that this event happened. And this is the Holocaust is such an important event for us to know about because it was the first time that a country had gone out of its way just for the sake of the mass extermination of a people in modern Europe. You can look at things like China right now, where they are putting Muslims in concentration camps, or China before with Mao Zedong, or Russia with Stalin. But a lot of these were self-contained to within the country. The Nazis specifically declared war for the sake of exterminating Jews from Europe, which is unparalleled in history and such an important thing for us as humans to know about, because we don't want something like this to happen again. Thank you. And this is my reference page, and I hope that this video has educated you more about the Holocaust, why, how it happened, what happened, and how it can be prevented again in the future. Thank you.